Hello and welcome to another of my monologues. Thanks for joining me. I am sitting on my armchair and just getting myself comfortable actually. It's a Sunday as I record this. I hope you're all well. Went to the post office yesterday, posted out a number of the old book, Biggleswick, Town That Wouldn't Comply. If you would like a copy, I still have a few left. They are going like hot cakes, I have to say. I'm so thrilled. People have written back and said they have thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not making that up. That's just not me bragging. That is genuinely, if anyone has read it, you could put maybe in the comments and let us know what you thought. You know, honest opinions. If you didn't like it, you can say as well, I don't mind. It's difficult when you're talking about something that you have written yourself and people may not believe that it was all right. So yeah, that's that. I am going to smoke my pipe. I have a pipe smoking video out. I need to get a coin actually. This is a strange box. It's a lovely box of tobacco. But you, unlike my normal tins, you need a coin to insert into it to open it. So I'm going to look at that, somewhat overflowing with luscious tobacco. I want to talk about slow living today. A friend of mine called Sean has a channel, Sean James Cameron. Known him for many, many years. Lovely chap. He's in Wales and he has his own homestead. And he is growing his own food. He's been very helpful to Julia and I with the English couple in advising us various things to buy at different times and plants and things over the years. And more so now as we are on our little bit of land. And if you haven't caught up with the English couple, the channel which is highlighting everything that we do on the land, then do go to the English couple. I say these things quite regularly, but it's surprising how many people say, oh, I didn't know you had a bit of land. And you think, well, we've had it for a while. So, you know, I know that even though we've clocked over on this channel 300,000 subscribers, not all of them are watching. It's funny how that goes, isn't it? But there we are. Anyway, let's put this back. That is lovely. So, slow living. I think of the Saxons. I think of the Neolithic people, the Bronze Age people. I think really of village life from 130 years ago. I think really, I guess, even before the Industrial Revolution. I think of English life in the Shires, and it makes me aware that in the past, sorry, I'm not quite comfortable. That's better. You see, I've got loads of layers on. It's absolutely freezing in the house at the moment, and outside it's blowing a gale, and it's wet and awful and grey and miserable. It is only early in the morning, but even so. So I've layered myself up. It's good advice to keep the body as warm as possible. Anyway, when you think back to those times that I've just illustrated, you think life was harder, harsher. We didn't have as many luxuries, of course. But by default, it was simpler, wasn't it? It was slower. You didn't have the pressure that you have today. People are running around at a breakneck speed at the moment. People have been conned, brainwashed into thinking that they need all these modern conveniences, things like television, the latest car, the latest mobile phone, the latest of everything, the latest fashions. Things that in the old days people would have just raised their eyes at and thought, well, if you've got something, if it ain't broke, you don't need to fix it. You don't need to upgrade it. Why change it? We are people who are collectors of stuff. I admit I've got a lot of stuff in my house. It's not helped by the fact that it's very difficult to go down to the tip these days without some form of identification given to you. And I refuse then to go down there because I don't want my, how many times has that Vobes character been down to the tip? What's he throwing away? What's he got? I don't want them to know. So, yeah, I've got a lot of clutter. But life was not only simpler, but slower. Back in those Saxon days, where the farmers came over here, back in the Neolithic hill forts, back in the villages up and down the country in the Middle Ages, they didn't have the same pressures. Yes, there were times when the king, who was claimed to be the authority, would get the peasants, as it were, to go and fight for him, for his ridiculous battles and things, and put their lives forward at different periods. But generally, the people who didn't want to do all of that, and if there was no king trying to defend his realm, and if there was no authority figures, that people would have just not bothered to go and fight one another. They would have just got on and done some farming, perhaps sold surplus from their self-sufficiency with one another, and had a very simple life. They would have got up with the seasons, they would have worked with nature, and life would have been simple and slower. And I mentioned Sean, his channel is about slow living in Wales, and I catch up with him and you see him pottering around on his homestead. And I think, yeah, that is a great way to be. That pressure that we put ourselves under to earn all this money, which we, of course, then spend on trinkets most of the time, or we give it to the authority figures who claim to have power over us and that we must give them taxes and things. And that's obviously very questionable depending on which jurisdiction you sit in. If you are one of the people of God, the creator of this planet that we see or find ourselves in, you realize that actually these other demigods, these small gods, are tricking you to make you think that you have to earn all this money so that you pay taxes to them. But I don't want to get into that on this video. Slow living is something I think that is sorely missed and sorely needed at this time as we move to the so-called progressive society all the time at a breakneck speed towards a digital takeover in which we need the answers to everything very quickly, with AI as being one of those now leading things that can tell us everything, that the next generation are treating as, as a god, as an authority. And yet we don't know where this AI has scraped up the information and if it's true or accurate or anything. So this is really where Julia and I are aiming to get to with our land. This first year will be slow progress, granted, because it's new, and we will be watching the land and seeing what happens to it over a year. I mean, we had some frost the other day, and it was fascinating to see where, when the sun came out and arced at low, as it does at this time, where the frost remains in the shadows of the trees, and you think, well, actually, that's very interesting, because if I was planting winter crops, I wouldn't plant them there because they've stayed in frost all day long, and anything in the ground there would have stayed rigid and not had softened up. Now, working on the land, of course, is hard work, and people have said to us, oh, you at your age, you can't possibly do that. And this is where you've got to look after yourself. And I think that's where slow living comes in, where you're taking it easy. You're not having to rush to get things done. You're under your own steam. Now, unfortunately, I was in the van and I was getting something out of my van to take up onto the land, and I slipped. And these sort of things happen, don't they? You slip, and I nearly impaled myself. I know some people would wish I had, on a hay fork, two great big sharp prongs. So in order to avoid that, I twisted and I pulled a muscle in my thigh. Of course, I didn't realise that at the time, but by later on in the day and the following night, I was very well aware that I'd pulled a muscle. And we've all done it, haven't we? We've all pulled a muscle in the small of our back and suddenly find ourselves debilitated and hobbling about. And that is slow living for sure. Well, I just wanted to say that, of course, I have been blessed in this journey that I've been doing recently of discovering some wonderful things that help people who have, hurt themselves. And one of the things I've tried is Clive de Carle's magnesium. And I tell you, if you're not taking magnesium, it's a really good pick-me-up and energizes you and takes away, well, for me, I can only talk what it did for me. It took away the pain, it eased my muscles, and it was very good. Bit of magnesium. We don't get enough magnesium in the diets that we have at the moment. And this is something that Julia and I are aiming to do as we plant our own foods and become more self-sufficient. The other thing is I take some raw hemp oil, CBD oil, from Endoka. You've heard me mention Endoka before. I'll put the links in the description. And again, these substances, which most people don't talk about anymore, hemp being an incredibly great thing for the body that has been hidden. Of course, a little bit of pipe smoking doesn't go down amiss, does it? It doesn't, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. So, I have found these sort of things, in one way or another, have helped me to continue working and keep that rhythm of slow living. Obviously, I'm not saying people just sit down and do bugger all. That's not the idea at all. You're continually doing things, but you're not doing them at the breakneck pace that we've become used to doing, or that we see doing, or we're encouraged to do, or we're thought that's the normal. It isn't normal. It isn't normal at all. Life is about enjoying it, not getting to the end of it. We must enjoy the moment much more. You can do what you jolly well like, of course. But for me, slow living, gentle living, being with nature is absolutely vital. And as I see the rest of the illusionary world forcing us to watch more terrifying stuff on video, forcing us to rush out and buy the latest thing, selling us dodgy products which may or may not be good for our health, and foods which you get conveniently packaged, which is really detrimental, then I want none of that. And as Julia and I have been on our little bit of heaven, our little place of God's earth, for a few months now, beginning to sort of understand the rhythm of life and slow living, and enjoying those moments where we stop, watch a red kite or a robin or a pheasant or just the sunset, just those small, simple things which mean so much. I don't know whether any of this made any sense to you. If you're interested in Biggleswick, the town that wouldn't comply, do email me, richard@vobes.com, and I'll make sure you know how to purchase one, and I'll get it off to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. Till next time. Goodbye.